The invitation to the strategy breakfast had arrived on my desk with a heavy, official seal. It felt like a high honor. I, Jessica, had spent 20 long years of my life serving Pioneer Enterprises, giving up countless weekends and holidays. I had worked my way up from a small desk in the corner to become a trusted, high-level manager. I felt ready for the big discussion Julian Thorne, our CEO, wanted to have about the company's future. I showed up early, wearing my best, most professional suit, feeling prepared and full of ideas. But when I walked into the large, empty conference room, my hope immediately evaporated. Julian was there, but so was the grim-faced head of human resources. Both of them wore smiles that did not reach their cold, distant eyes. It was a formal, chilling trap. Julian did not offer a friendly greeting. Instead, he simply slid a heavy, expensive folder across the polished mahogany table. Inside was a package for my forced early retirement. They spoke in quick, professional language about cultural misalignment and the sudden need to modernize the leadership team with younger blood. It was a humiliating, obvious lie. I looked past Julian and saw his niece, Chloe, waiting just outside the glass door, tapping her foot impatiently. The replacement was already here. I was given only 72 hours to sign the papers and leave my entire life behind. My feet moved on their own, carrying me away from the terrible conference room. I felt numb, like my body was made of heavy lead, and the polished marble floor of the executive hallway seemed to tilt under my weight. The entire world of Pioneer, which had always been my anchor, now felt cold and empty. As I walked, I saw the faces of my colleagues. People I had hired, mentored, and even shared personal stories with, suddenly avoided my gaze. They busied themselves with papers, stared intensely at their computer screens, or walked quickly in the opposite direction. The shocking news of my betrayal was already public, and I was being treated like a disease. I was a ghost walking through my own company. Then the deepest cut of all. I passed my office, the one I had earned, and saw Chloe already inside. She was holding a tape measure, gesturing excitedly to a junior assistant about new paint and furniture. She glanced up, offered me a quick fake smirk of victory, and went back to planning her new life in my old space. The absolute betrayal and total lack of respect were a public, brutal execution of my career. I hurried down the hallway, clutching a small, half-filled box of personal items, desperate to escape the intense humiliation. When I finally got back to the quiet safety of my own apartment, the shock instantly began to change into something else. A powerful, explosive rage. 20 years of sacrifice, all of my best efforts, all the times I had put Pioneer before my own needs, were being thrown away like trash. Also, Julian could give a high-paying job to his unqualified niece. I grabbed a large, dusty cardboard box that contained 2 decades of company memorabilia, old awards, plaques, and badges. I started emptying the box, tearing up old memos and reports, fully intending to throw it all away in a fit of powerful anger. I wanted to erase every single memory of Pioneer. As I violently flipped the box over, a thick, yellowed manila envelope, much heavier than the other papers, fell out and landed quietly on the wooden floor. I picked it up, curiosity slowing my rage. Inside was my original, official employment contract from when I first started, personally signed by the company's true founder, the wonderful Arthur Brennan, who had died many years ago. It felt like holding a piece of long-forgotten history. I pulled a chair up to the kitchen table, the shock of the past few hours completely forgotten in the face of this unexpected discovery. I slowly smoothed out the brittle, legal-sized pages. The paper smelled old and slightly musty. I carefully scanned the tiny, dense legalese, paragraph by paragraph. Most of it was the standard stuff I had seen 100 times, detailing my salary and basic responsibilities. But then deep on the 3rd page, a single, unique paragraph suddenly grabbed my attention and made my heart race wildly. It was Clause 17, and it was titled, Mutual Succession Agreement. I read the words 3 times to be certain I understood them correctly. It stated that if my employment was ended for any reason that wasn't a disciplinary firing, either I or the company had the power to invoke immediate, legally binding arbitration. This hearing would not be run by Julian's lawyers, but by a special, private panel made up only of the original, now retired board of trustees. It was a secret clause Arthur had created, a powerful shield for loyal, long-term employees like me. The names of the old, retired board of trustees were listed right there beneath the clause. They were legends, powerful figures who had helped Arthur build Pioneer from the ground up. Most of them had completely disappeared from the corporate world years ago. One name, however, stood out like a powerful beacon of light: Eleanor Vance. She was known as a force of nature, sharp, brilliant, and famously unafraid of confrontation. Crucially, in her retirement, Eleanor had become fiercely vocal and publicly litigious about protecting Arthur Brennan's founding legacy from Julian's current, self-serving corporate strategies. I knew instantly that she was my only chance. My fingers shook with urgency as I began a frantic, desperate online search. I found an old mailing address and finally, a current email address. I immediately drafted a short, respectful, but extremely urgent message. I spoke of Julian's actions and referenced the exact wording of Clause 17, and the name Arthur Brennan. I hit send, feeling like I had just thrown a small, important pebble into a huge, quiet ocean. I could not sleep. I paced my apartment for hours, staring intensely at the computer screen, waiting for a reply that I honestly felt might never come. I kept rereading the contract, turning the words of Clause 17 over and over in my head. The window blinds were still drawn, making the room dark and heavy. Then at exactly 3 a.m., just as the darkness was starting to feel permanent, my laptop gave a soft, sudden ping. A new email had arrived. My hands were shaking as I clicked it open. The message was short, cryptic, and demanded absolute secrecy. It was signed only with a bold, firm E. The words were, "Meet me. The Old Linden Cafe. 7 a.m. Tell no one. Now." E. My heart gave a powerful leap of pure adrenaline. This was it. The battle for my career and Arthur's company was officially no longer a quiet fight inside my head. The game had begun, and I was holding the key to the entire operation. I knew I had to be flawless and completely silent. The Old Linden Cafe was exactly the kind of place you would expect a wealthy, retired executive to choose. Crowded enough to be anonymous, but with quiet corners for serious conversation. Eleanor Vance, even at 78, looked incredibly sharp and absolutely intimidating in her tailored suit. Her eyes, magnified slightly by her glasses, missed nothing in the room. I quickly told her everything. The cruel meeting, Julian's fake smiles, the humiliation, and the specific names of his collaborators. I finally produced the old contract and pointed to Clause 17. Her face, which had been tight with anger, softened slightly as she read Arthur's words. She immediately confirmed that the clause was completely ironclad and legally enforceable. She explained that Arthur had always called it the company's moral compass, a way to protect the integrity of Pioneer's leadership. She instantly agreed to use her power to find the old trustees. But then, she looked me directly in the eye, her expression becoming very serious. "Julian is playing a dangerous, high-stakes game, Jessica," she warned me. "What are you really standing in the way of? This is about more than just your lost job." I went back to the office the next day, playing the role of the defeated employee, sadly gathering my belongings over the next 72 hours. I needed to look like I was preparing to leave. In the late afternoon, as I was walking toward the fire escape stairwell, Leo Brennan, Arthur's quiet grandson and a brilliant junior data analyst, suddenly appeared. He looked pale and extremely nervous. He quickly bumped into me and with a quick, nearly undetectable motion, slipped a small, folded piece of paper into the pocket of my purse. The note was brief and demanding. "I need to talk immediately. The loading dock. 8 p.m. It's urgent." I was shaking when I met him later that night. The loading dock was cold and smelled of diesel. Leo was terrified but spoke quickly, his voice a tense whisper. He revealed that Julian had been secretly, illegally rerouting massive, valuable shipments and millions of dollars in company capital to a secret, empty shell subsidiary he had created, which he had cleverly named Phoenix Ventures. Leo looked at me with deep fear in his eyes. He knew this was not just bad business, it was criminal behavior. The very next morning, I secured a quiet, separate meeting with both Eleanor and Leo at a temporary, highly secure apartment I had rented. Leo quickly went to work, using his secret, old-school backdoor access into Pioneer's deep, forgotten network, which Julian's security team had never found. He started pulling up the hidden financial reports for Phoenix Ventures. The information that appeared on the screen was a complete nightmare. A huge, chaotic labyrinth of massive, inexplicable losses. But Eleanor, with her decades of experience as a high-level executive, immediately saw the pattern. The movement of the money wasn't random or accidental. It was deliberately designed to confuse anyone looking for fraud. "This isn't just incompetence, Jessica," Eleanor stated, tapping her finger on a screen printout of a transfer. "This is a deliberate diversion of assets. Julian is draining Pioneer of its most important resources and sending them to his ghost company, making it look like a failed investment." The sudden realization was terrifying. Julian wasn't just planning to fire me. He was secretly planning to steal the entire company. Eleanor worked quickly and completely out of sight. She used her old, respected status and her fierce loyalty to Arthur's memory to contact the two other key names listed on the contract. She successfully convinced Alistair, a brilliant former CFO who was now a full-time hobbyist woodworker, and Byron, a stern, retired logistics titan, to rejoin the cause. Both men were instantly horrified by the idea of Julian's corruption destroying Arthur's life's work. Within 48 hours, the arbitration panel was officially active and ready to hear the case. I then took the next huge step. Using the lawyer Griffin recommended, I formally invoked Clause 17, making my legal demand official, and served Julian Thorne and Pioneer Enterprises with the legal papers. I felt a surge of cold, powerful energy. Julian thought he was dealing with a defeated woman, but he was about to face the full legal force of Arthur Brennan's moral compass. Julian's reaction to the legal papers was exactly what we had hoped for. According to our quiet sources, he received the legal documents while on a conference call. He reportedly threw his head back and laughed loudly, a scornful, echoing sound of total arrogance that stopped the call. He immediately called the arbitration demand a pathetic and ridiculous stunt from an old woman and a disgruntled, irrelevant manager. He gathered his most trusted advisors, including his ruthless chief operating officer, a man everyone feared named Ian. Julian told them confidently, "The old guard has absolutely no power left. They are museum pieces. We will simply bury Jessica and that old, senile woman in massive legal fees. They will run out of money and courage long before we run out of resources." His arrogance was blinding, and he completely underestimated the legal power of that forgotten, 20-year-old contract. Julian, though arrogant, was not slow to hit back. His counterstrike was designed to destroy my public standing. He immediately went public with a professional press release, announcing my retirement. He made sure to loudly praise my long and honorable service to Pioneer, deliberately painting a picture of a happy, willing departure to pursue personal interests. He then formally introduced Chloe, his niece, as the dynamic and modern new future of the company, highlighting her youthful energy. The company newsletter featured a large, smiling picture of Chloe. By portraying me as a willing retiree, Julian completely stripped away the context of my legal action. My arbitration demand would now look like the bitter, pathetic whimpering of an ex-employee who had simply changed her mind. My public credibility was entirely ruined, leaving me feeling exposed and angry, but more determined than ever. Eleanor Vance's private library, a beautiful, quiet room filled with old leather-bound books, officially became our secret war room. The three trustees, Eleanor, Alistair, and Byron, held their first formal strategy meeting. We carefully mapped out a two-pronged attack plan. The first prong was simple: fight Julian's lawyers and successfully validate the ironclad legal power of Clause 17 in the initial hearing. The second and much more important prong was to immediately use our new legal standing to issue a powerful, binding subpoena for all the financial books and secret records of Phoenix Ventures. Eleanor had hired a brilliant, fearless litigator named Griffin, who was extremely expensive but the very best. Griffin assured us all with absolute confidence, "The clause is alive and well. Julian is simply bluffing to run up your bill. The arbitration will proceed, and we will force him to hand over those documents. Our only lifeline inside Pioneer, Leo Brennan, had a terrifyingly close call. Julian's ruthless COO, Ian, was watching him closely. Ian had sensed Leo's tension and had started monitoring his every keystroke. Leo was almost caught when he tried to access a hidden, sealed folder containing Julian's private expense reports, a small piece of evidence. He narrowly managed to bluff his way out of the situation, quickly claiming that he was running a complex, required data integrity check on old files because the system was showing a ghost error. He sold the lie, but Ian was definitely not convinced. Ian's eyes were cold and suspicious. From that moment on, Ian assigned a low-level analyst to watch Leo's desk at all times. The pressure on Leo was immense, and I knew we had to move faster before Julian's fixer found the back door and cut off our vital supply of information forever. Julian's high-priced, aggressive lawyers immediately filed a motion to dismiss our entire arbitration case. They loudly claimed that Clause 17 was a completely obsolete, ancient artifact, and that the retired trustees had absolutely no legal standing or power to enforce any part of it. The first, crucial arbitration hearing was set quickly. The atmosphere in the formal, decorated hearing room was suffocatingly tense. Griffin, our lawyer, remained calm and confident, a rock in the storm. He quietly told us, "The clause is fully alive, and Arthur's intent is what matters here. Julian is simply trying to win this on a technicality. We have the founder's legacy and the law on our side." His confidence slightly calmed the terrible nervousness in my stomach, but I knew that losing this first legal battle would end everything we had fought for. The hearing began with Julian's lawyers arguing their case, loudly claiming the old contract was irrelevant. Then Julian himself delivered a shocking blow. He brought his own unexpected, uninvited trustee into the room. A slick, paid consultant who falsely claimed that Arthur Brennan had verbally nullified the entire clause years ago. In a quiet, private conversation, Julian's lawyers argued that this paid consultant was privy to Arthur's last wishes. The tension in the room instantly became volcanic and completely unbearable. Eleanor Vance immediately jumped up, her face white with fury, and called Julian a liar right there in the room. The arbitration panel, shaken by Julian's deep dishonesty and the unexpected ambush, decided to immediately adjourn to a private room to deliberate on the matter. Julian gave me a small, hateful smile as he left the room, clearly believing his money and his lies had just won him the whole case. During the long, tense adjournment, Eleanor Vance pulled off a complete miracle. She quietly produced a never-before-seen video deposition from Arthur Brennan himself. It was a high-quality video, made just a few months before his passing. On the tape, a frail but incredibly clear-headed Arthur sat in his study, looking directly into the camera. He stated clearly, his voice strong, "Clause 17 is the ultimate conscience for this company. I confirm its power, and it is entirely irrevocable." The video also restated the names of the original, powerful trustees. When the panel returned, Eleanor calmly played the short, powerful clip. Julian's face went immediately pale, turning a terrible shade of gray. His smug, confident mask completely shattered. The pure, raw fear that I had been waiting to see was now clearly visible in his desperate eyes. His entire legal ambush had just been exposed and completely destroyed. The arbitration panel was visibly moved and deeply angered by Arthur's final, powerful words and Julian's obvious attempts to deceive them. They ruled unanimously and immediately. The arbitration clause was fully valid and legally binding, and the panel had the complete authority to proceed with the case. Even worse for Julian, all our discovery motions were instantly granted. This meant Julian was legally forced to surrender all the books, records, and internal emails of his secret shell company, Phoenix Ventures, to the trustees' careful examination. He had lost the first, most important battle in spectacular fashion. His initial arrogance crumbled completely, revealing a layer of cold, desperate panic that he could no longer hide from anyone in the room. The subpoenaed records for Phoenix Ventures were finally delivered, arriving in dozens of heavy boxes and hundreds of disorganized digital files. It was a chaotic, impossible mess of numbers and figures, deliberately designed to confuse and intimidate. But Alastair, the former CFO trustee, was a true genius at reading financial systems. He saw the pattern instantly, spotting the small, clever fraud hidden beneath the mountains of papers. He realized that the documents showed a complex, deliberate system of disguised, criminal debt masked cleverly as asset transfers. He quickly pieced together the shocking, devastating truth. Phoenix Ventures was not a failed business. It was a massive financial corpse that Julian had created, and was propping up to hide over $500 million in catastrophic losses and illegal dealings. He was trying to cover up a monumental, criminal disaster he had personally created. While the trustees were poring over the chaotic paper files, Leo, showing true courage despite his fear, used his limited network access to find encrypted emails. He uncovered a secret, shocking correspondence between Julian and a huge, powerful private equity firm called Greystone Capital. The emails were the final smoking gun. Julian was secretly negotiating a complete fire sale of Pioneer's last remaining healthy, profitable assets to Greystone. His entire plan was to quickly sell off the good parts of the company, take the money, and leave the massive, toxic debt of Phoenix Ventures with the main Pioneer company, forcing it into sudden bankruptcy. Leo's discovery proved Julian was planning to cannibalize Arthur's life's work for personal profit, leaving thousands of people without jobs. Julian, realizing the noose was tightening and sensing the information was still leaking, decided to strike back hard and make an immediate, cruel example. He formally fired Leo Brennan for gross data misconduct, claiming Leo had stolen and manipulated private files. Julian personally made sure that Leo was escorted out of the building by a team of stone-faced security guards, right in front of all his scared colleagues. It was a cold, calculated, brutal public message aimed directly at me, Jessica. I will destroy every single person who dares to help you. The public humiliation of Leo, Arthur's innocent grandson, was a low blow that filled me with a deeper resolve to win, no matter the cost to myself. Julian's desperation was becoming a very dangerous weapon. Completely cornered and desperate to stop the Phoenix files from going public, Julian tried one last, desperate move. He requested a second, private meeting with me, meeting me in a secluded hotel conference room far from the city. He immediately offered me an incredible bribe. A massive, lifetime VP role with an enormous salary and benefits package, along with a secret agreement to make the Phoenix problem disappear quietly. He appealed directly to my deep sense of loyalty, arguing that if the fraud went public, all the loyal Pioneer employees, the ones I had worked with for 20 years, would lose their jobs instantly in the collapse. He tried to sell me the lie that the only way to save the company's people was to quietly take his golden bribe and drop the entire arbitration right now. I stared hard at the massive check he had written out and the beautiful, golden handcuffs he was offering me. A safe, easy, rich future. I saw the image of the humiliated Leo Brennan in my mind. I remembered Arthur's stern, honest face on the videotape. I thought of the thousands of honest, hard-working employees that Julian was ready to sacrifice to save his own skin. I looked Julian directly in his desperate, greedy eyes and told him the powerful truth that he needed to hear. You did not build this incredible company, Julian. You are nothing more than a thief trying to completely loot and destroy Arthur's legacy. I stood up slowly from the table, leaving his massive offer completely untouched. As I walked out, I felt a powerful, profound sense of peace. The easy choice would have been the money, but the right choice was saving Pioneer. Julian went absolutely nuclear after I rejected his massive bribe. He immediately planted a vicious, completely false story with a major industry blog, claiming that I, Jessica, was a disgruntled, unstable ex-employee who was trying to extort the company for millions. He claimed the contract was faked and I was using it for blackmail. He sent a company-wide email, ordering every single manager to tell their teams that I was a criminal trying to destroy Pioneer. Colleagues I had personally mentored for years were strictly ordered not to contact me, or they would be immediately fired. The public smear campaign was brutal and constant, aimed at ruining my professional reputation forever. I knew the damage was severe, but I kept my focus completely on the final, upcoming board meeting. The truth would soon destroy his lies. The three trustees, now completely understanding the entire criminal operation, were united in their powerful fury. They knew they could not wait for the long, slow final legal ruling from the arbitration panel. They voted immediately to take their entire, devastating finding directly to the full, current board of directors, completely bypassing Julian and the regular corporate system. They spent another full night, working tirelessly, assembling a final, beautiful proof book. It contained Arthur's video, Alistair's complete financial autopsy of the Phoenix fraud, and the actual Greystone emails. They created a narrative that was impossible to deny. The time for legal maneuvering was completely over. It was time for the final, sudden execution of justice. In the deep, quiet hours just before dawn, while Julian was still sleeping, every single member of the current Pioneer Board of Directors received a hand-delivered, sealed, and personalized package at their private homes. The package contained the entire proof book, the original powerful contract, a full detailed copy of Arthur's video, the expert financial breakdown of the Phoenix fraud, and all the Greystone Capital emails that showed Julian's plan to destroy the company. The cover letter was simple, serious, and signed by the 3 founding trustees. An emergency board meeting is required immediately. The future of Pioneer Enterprises is at a deadly stake. The founding trustees. The stage was now set perfectly for the inevitable, final confrontation that Julian could not escape. Julian Thorne arrived at the emergency board meeting that morning, confidently expecting to completely control the conversation and easily talk his way out of the current situation. Instead, he stopped dead in the doorway. He found Eleanor Vance, his fierce old adversary, sitting calmly and powerfully at the very head of the massive, mahogany table, the place where only the CEO should sit. The devastating proof book lay open before every single board member. I, Jessica, was also present, sitting calmly as the official petitioner who had initiated the entire process of justice. Julian's self-assured confidence instantly crumbled. The room was not under his control. It was a silent, powerful court of judgment, and he was the only person standing trial for his crimes. The confrontation began immediately. One by one, the founding trustees and I systematically dismantled every piece of Julian's vast empire of greed and lies. Alistair, the CFO trustee, calmly and expertly explained the massive, criminal financial fraud hidden within the Phoenix records, pointing out the debt masked as assets. Griffin, the lawyer, detailed the serious legal breach of trust and the violation of Arthur's ironclad contract. I spoke last, and I spoke not about my job or my pain, but about Arthur's original, noble vision for the company and the thousands of loyal, hard-working employees that Julian was ready to sacrifice to save his own skin. My voice was clear, strong, and completely filled with passion, speaking for everyone he had betrayed. The current board members listened in stunned, horrified silence. The debate was brief, lasting only minutes. They immediately held a vote. The decision was unanimous and instantaneous. Julian Thorne was removed as CEO, effective immediately. His company access and all privileges were instantly revoked before he could even gather his things. The board then voted to immediately refer the entire Phoenix Ventures matter, including all of Julian's fraudulent dealings, directly to the SEC and the federal authorities for criminal prosecution. As a pale, defeated Julian was escorted from the building by security guards, he turned and hissed one final, desperate, empty insult at me. "You've killed this company, Jessica, you and your old cronies." I looked back at him, completely unfazed, knowing I had just finally saved Pioneer. Pioneer Enterprises was safe from Julian, but it was in a serious crisis. The current board needed calm, stable, and completely honest leadership immediately. They quickly turned to Eleanor Vance for final guidance. She immediately recommended the creation of a temporary office of the CEO, a team of trusted, honest people to lead the rescue. She named me, Jessica, as the chief restructuring officer, the person who would clean up the financial mess and restore order. She also immediately reinstated Leo Brennan, the heroic young analyst, as the new chief strategy officer. Our new job was to dismantle Phoenix and save Pioneer's good name. I sat in the CEO's powerful chair, not as a victor seeking revenge, but as a surgeon ready to save a critically ill patient. I looked at Leo and the two trustees with a deep sense of purpose. "Let's get to work," I said firmly, and we began the serious work of cleaning up the mess. The final shot was of my original contract, Clause 17, now beautifully framed and sitting right on my new, massive desk. A powerful, silent promise kept.